Makeup on, everything's good, everything's beautiful.
Oh, that's a good start.
I've heard the story a lot.
You gotta be sarcastic, right? You do know the Christmas story.
Do you know how old Mary was when it all kicked off?
I reckon Mary was approximately 14 years old. That's my best guess. I am 15 years old.
She was our age.
Yes, she was a teenager, so probably about the same age as I am. I'm 15.
She was like around a teenager.
She was like a teenager, about my age, 13, which must have been quite scary. Because like, if it was me, I'd be petrified.
Right, so tell us what happened then.
There was Mary and Joseph,
Who was a carpenter.
who were, I think they'd not got married yet. They were planning on it.
Mary and Joseph having a normal day, like usual, nothing special.
Angel came down to Mary. The angel's name was Gabriel.
And then an angel came to her in the night and said, do not be afraid, but I'm going to give you a gift of a baby, and that baby is going to be called Jesus. And then Mary becomes pregnant, which she must have been very scared.
That's a bit weird to think about, because if I was in her position, I would be very worried.
And they say, look, you're gonna have a baby, but don't be scared. It's gonna be great. Don't worry about it. And yeah, so she, yeah. Do I do the whole story? Yes. Okay. He basically said that Mary was gonna have a baby, but it wouldn't be Joseph's baby, it would be God's baby.
And then Joseph came home and Mary told Joseph that she was having a baby, and he was probably very confused because
She didn't know like what was going on really. She was just suddenly out of nowhere told that she was having a baby. But it was really good of Joseph to stick by her during that, because he could have left her and the story could have been completely different.
she would probably been really overwhelmed as well.
Joseph's a bit suspicious. He doesn't know what's going on really, because he hasn't had a visit from an angel. But then he does get a visit in a dream.
But then in a dream, an angel told him to not be afraid and to still take Mary as his wife.
The Romans were in charge and they called a census. So everyone had to go and write their names down on a sheet to say they were alive. Because there was a census going on.
They made a journey from Nazareth to Bethlehem to find somewhere to stay.
And there is no rooms at the inn. There is no places for them to go. She's pregnant, she's about to give birth, and I think again she would be traumatised, really scared if you're about to give birth and there was nowhere for you to go. So they knock on all the innkeepers' doors, and at the moment she's on a donkey. She's ridden on a donkey because she can barely walk.
But they couldn't find anywhere, so they had to go to a stable when her waters broke.
And then there was a stable open, so they asked if they could stay there. And then he said no, probably. And then he said yes, because her water broke. So then she had to give birth on the floor, with animals around her. Probably smelled really bad.
So they go there and she has the baby Jesus on Christmas night. It's all good.
Is it Christmas night?
We don't know, it might be in October.
So he was laid in a manger wrapped in cloth.
Looks like a cot, isn't it? But like, wasn't it like what they ate food out of? Am I right? So they put him in a manger.
Mary must have just felt quite confused, because like when you become a mum it's probably quite overwhelming anyway. But when it's that much responsibility and it's happened in that circumstance, it must have just been very overwhelming for her. But when she knew it was like God's plan for her and he was going to protect her and look after her, that probably brought her peace.
But while this was all kicking off, in the fields nearby, some shepherds were sleeping, and then suddenly a whole range of heavenly hosts quite a good one there.
Loads and loads of angels, like thousands, tons of thousands, appeared in the sky singing, "Don't be afraid, it's all good."
Follow the star to baby Jesus, and they know it's God, but they don't know who it is. And so they follow it, and they do eventually find baby Jesus in the stables with the animals.
3 wise men came with gold, frankincense and myrrh.
But before they found the stable, they reached King Herod, who was the king, and he basically said, "Look, when you found him, tell me about it, because I want to know, because I want to meet him." But Herod, he's a clever guy, he's cunning, and he then has a plan. He says, "I'm king, none of this. I'm going to kill him when I find out who he is." So then when the wise men leave after the birth of Jesus, they don't go and tell Herod, because they get told in a dream not to. So Herod's cunning plan is foiled by the dreams of the wise men. They were very wise to not go back to Herod.
And they do eventually find baby Jesus in the stables with the animals. Yeah, that's the main bit of the story.
Because if he wasn't born, then he wouldn't have lived his life. So we wouldn't have got all of our sins forgiven because of the crucifixion thing.
Everyone knows the Christmas story. It's universal. The person that works in Sainsbury's next door, the girl that lives in New Zealand, your school friend, they all know the Christmas story, but they don't always know what it means for them and what it means for the world. So I think it is, Jesus came as the light and the hope in the darkness, and he came to be, to take away all our sins of the world. And if people don't know that, then they don't know what the true Christmas story is, because it was a world changer when he came. Yeah.
I think because it's the base of, it's the beginning of all of these other miracles and stories which have come from this. So it's important to start at the beginning so that you're able to understand all these other amazing things.
It's the main thing God does to show his love for us is send Jesus. So it makes sense to celebrate the day and the events around the day that he comes into our world, and he's now one of us, and that's God's way of showing he loves us, is that he sent his son to be with us and to die for us. And it's just celebrating God's love for us by what he did, celebrating that.
I think because it's the start of Jesus' life, and I think a lot of people know the story but don't know it in a lot of depth and the real meanings. And I think it's just important to know what happened, and it gives you a greater understanding. And it's one of the most probably important stories in the Bible.
This is a really important story for all Christians and, well, really everyone in the world, because it's the story of how our God became living flesh on earth, and how he sent his only son to come down and live an amazing 33 years doing miracles and all sorts, and then eventually pay the ultimate sacrifice and give himself up for us. And I think that's why it's so important, because of what it meant and the change that came about Jesus' life. And obviously you usually always have to be born to get into the world, so yeah. And also the fact that he was born just showed how he was human and was the same as us, but very different also, and how we should try and be.